I was a psychologist that didn't really know he wanted to be a psychologist. And I spent the first 10 years of my career working as a trader. I started on the London Metal Exchange in way back 1979, when there was a boom in silver prices, and I got involved in that. And then a couple of years later, the London International Financial Futures Market started, so I got involved in that. And by the time I'd done with trading futures markets, I traded everything from pork bellies to orange juice to cotton to Eurobonds and the like. So I did a bit of all of that. But one thing I've experienced as a trader was that although it's hugely challenging as a job, every day is pretty much the same. You sit in front of a screen, you watch numbers go up and down, and you buy and you sell. So it seemed like a pretty bad way to develop any kind of interpersonal skills. It seemed like a pretty bad way to really kind of understand how the world works, and I'm a curious person. So I decided after about 10 years that I'd had enough and I should find something different. Initially, I went into management, and I worked for a foreign exchange company that operated bureau de change, principally in London at the airports. So I was still involved in money in a financial sense. We also had a travel business, and I helped grow that business for a number of years. And it was during that time that I got very interested in, well, how is it that people get on or don't get on in business? And what should the relationship between a manager and an employee, a member of staff, be like? And what's the best way to get the best out of people? And how do you decide that? And it seemed to me that that was an area that organizations knew very little about, but that psychology was the main body of knowledge that could help inform those people as to how best to work together, really. So I went back to university and did a master's in psychology, and eventually I got myself chartered and been a consultant ever since. Really, it seems that there's been a huge growth in the field, that all sorts of people now, probably there are more psychologists, but there's a lot of people that work in a similar way to occupational psychologists like myself, who call themselves consultants or coaches or mentors or trainers. So there's been a big growth, I think, in interest in applying psychology in the workplace. It's been taken up mostly by people that aren't really psychologists. That's a good question. I think the psychologists sort of look around and they're always kind of slightly surprised that there's other organizations sort of taking up their space. And a lot of these people call themselves behavioral scientists now. So psychology has become a bit of a sort of backwater term. And then there was a unit in the in government called the Nudge Unit, actually still operating. And they call themselves behavioral scientists. And they're really just applying social science, social psychology science to government policy. But they didn't really call themselves psychologists, which was interesting. So I think psychology as a profession has probably sort of struggled along, that it hasn't really ever met its full potential. It sees its ideas taken up by people outside the profession and made better use of than psychologists manage to do it themselves. And I don't think that there's ever been an organization that's really been curious about my professional credentials. they've taken it very much on trust. So it doesn't seem to make a difference to organizations what kind of professional qualifications you have, so long as they see you as credible in one way or another.